Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Today we have ourselves quite a show, as we have a lot to get into in the world of Southern California sports, such as the Rams getting a win after bouncing back from their loss against the Eagles, as they took down the Cardinals with fairly good ease, as this week they take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Chargers chargered on primetime TV as they lost to the Dallas Cowboys. This week it doesn't get easier as they take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Do they even have a chance this week? Probably not. But how about Angel City FC clinching a playoff spot in the NWSL playoffs? Yes, Angel City finally clinched a playoff spot, and they are dancing, as it looked doubtful, but they were able to get it. And how about Wave FC clinch the number 1 seed, as they'll have home field advantage throughout the entire NWSL playoffs. And unfortunately, the Dodgers are pretty much out of the playoffs, as they got swept yet again by an NL West foe in the Arizona Diamondbacks. How bad was it for the Dodgers? And speaking of bad, why did USC look so terrible against Notre Dame? And UCLA fared no better against Oregon State, but that was kind of to be expected. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IA Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Thursday afternoon, Thursday morning, Thursday, wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way into episode 153 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter, now known as X, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. And also, we have a Facebook page. All you just have to do is type in the word IE Sports and Radio in the search bar, search for us, like us, and then boom. That's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. We also have a daily updated website, www.iesportsradio.com, for all sports news, our IE Sports Radio blog, our Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month, pages dedicated to each podcast, such as this one, our community forum, our merchandise shop, which is being updated because the seasons are changing. Because for the past 9 years and counting, IA Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports seasons around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IA Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar, and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit www.planetjerky.net and place your order, and then that's how you're able to get some of that delicious Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Follow Planet Jerky on Instagram at Planet Jerky to keep up with them on social media. Once again, huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. And ways to follow the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on social media is on X at SoCal Show IESR, and follow me on X at Teran Rodriguez 1, which you don't have to. I post a lot of miscellaneous content ranging from me complaining about the Chargers to other things. With all that said and done, let us begin, as I do gotta apologize for not having a show last week. Sadly, I was wrapped up. Friday, I was just too busy. Normally, I would have made... If I didn't have work until, let's say, until 2 o'clock, I maybe could have had a show from, 2 to 1:30, but sadly, that was not the case. So, unfortunately, I was unable to do a show on Friday, and then Thursday I was swamped. So, sadly, and then Saturday I was just busy at the Laguna Beach Open, which, if you are following on the Set Point account, which is my other show that I do on IE Sports Radio, I was busy covering that on Saturday and on Sunday. So, I tried to do a show on Saturday, but it was just not looking like it. So, time just did not permit me to do SoCal Supreme Sports Show last week, so I apologize to those that were looking forward to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, but we have a show this week, and that's all that truly matters. So let's begin. Alright, so we have to go over the NFL just because we missed a couple weeks. Okay, and honestly, I don't really need to go over too much on the Chargers because they had a bye week, but I guess I should go over the Rams, as I did miss their week against the Eagles, and okay, here's the thing about their matchup against the Eagles. They actually did hold their own for the most part, and they actually led 14-10, but they allowed a late touchdown. This kind of resembled the game against the Niners almost. And eventually the Eagles went up 17-14 at halftime as Jalen Hurts snuck his way in for a late touchdown, as I imagine it was the tush push. Kind of the same way the Niners took the lead late in the second quarter before halftime. And then eventually the Rams never scored again, as there was just too much offensive ineptitude. It was the first game that Cooper Kupp was back from, which is good, but the Matthew Stafford just was either making mistakes, or he was getting sacked, or there was just no run game. And honestly, the Eagles didn't have to do much offensively. Their only scoring actually came in the fourth quarter, courtesy of Jake Elliott in the kicking game, as Jalen Hurts wasn't even that perfect as well. He did have a touchdown pass, he did have a pick, but honestly, he wasn't even that great. So the Rams definitely could have, had their chances to maybe score some more and not get shut out in the second half. So it was just a painful afternoon seeing the Rams lose to the Eagles, because that game was so ripe for the taking for the Rams. If they get at least one score, one touchdown, they may have a shot at that game, but sadly they just couldn't, and unfortunately they wound up taking the L, and that's how they lost. What's worse is that they lost Kyren Williams to, I think this was the game they lost Kyren Williams to injury. If not, it was the other game against the the Arizona Cardinals, but no, it was the game against the Cardinals, but jumping over to the Cardinals game, the Rams did bounce back in a nice way as they took down the Cardinals 26-9. Now that game in the first half, I'm so glad I did not see this game, because that was an ugly game if I've seen an ugly game, because touchdowns did not exist for either team. And it was actually at the point where the Rams were actually down 9-3, and it's like, am I really going to have to recap this ugly loss? No. Fortunately for the Rams, they got a late field goal with 4 seconds remaining before halftime occurred, as the Rams were trailing 9-6 at halftime. But then the Rams really kicked it up a notch in the second half, as Cooper Kupp finally got his first touchdown of the season, as there was a 13-yard pass. And eventually the Rams kind of found their offensive flow and rhythm. And the Cardinals, unfortunately being the Cardinals, their quarterback is Josh Dobbs, and they have no run game because I forget his first name. It's something Connor, but unfortunately they did have a run game. The Cardinals straight up just don't have a run game. James Conner, that's his name, the guy from Pitt. But James Conner was out, he's on IR, and the Cardinals just don't have a run game. And the Cardinals' run game was non-existent when Josh Dobbs led them in rushing yards. He had a whopping 47 rushing yards, which That's criminal right there for the Cardinals. They got to get a running back, and a reliable one. But back to the Rams. Speaking of running backs, Kyren Williams did have a 5-yard rushing touchdown, and eventually the Rams put it away as they wound up winning 26-9. So they kind of flipped the script on this game, as they were the ones that shut out their opponent this game, as opposed to them getting shut out in the second half. So that's the good news. The bad news is they lost Kyren Williams in this game. So while Kyren Williams did have 158 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown, he got hurt, and he is out for multiple weeks, and he won't be available until after the Week 10 bye. So, no, this is honestly bad. The Rams cannot catch a break when it comes to getting good running backs. They have their good running back of the future in Kyren Williams. He gets hurt. This seems to happen quite a bit. Cam Akers got hurt, Todd Gurley got hurt, and now Kyren Williams gets added to that list of hurt running backs on the Rams. Now the Rams have to turn to Zach Evans and Royce Freeman. Royce Freeman is a veteran, as he was pulled up from the practice squad up to the Rams. If not, he was signed from free agency, while Zach Evans was pulled up from the practice squad. I really don't know what to say about this, except the Rams just simply can't catch a break when it comes to these injuries. It seems like when they have one guy coming off of IR, they get another guy back on IR, which is sickening if you ask me. So, man, that's a tough blow. And the thing about Kyren Williams is he was having such a great rookie year, and now he's on IR. And he's not going to be available for, until after Week 10, which just straight up sucks. And the Rams are currently in Week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... So they were just in Week 6, which I guess he's not on IR, which means he's not going to be missing 4 games, which would be implying he'd be missing 4 games. So he technically avoided a bullet and is not on IR. But overall, it just sucks because that means less offense for the Rams, and it's going to be a bigger uphill climb to put points on the board. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Rams, but that just sucks, dude. Alright, but as for the Rams, their next game is against Pittsburgh, as they'll be hosting the Steelers in a 1:05 p.m. tilt at SoFi Stadium. Here's the thing about the Steelers. Their offensive output has been very if you ask me. But their defense really shines, with T.J. Watt just being a man-child, and Minkah Fitzpatrick as well. So this feels like a game the Rams can win, but it also feels like a game the Rams could lose. I really want to believe that the Rams can win convincingly, but it's so tough when you don't have a run game, your quarterback is behind one of the not-so-best offensive lines, and he has little to no time to throw. And honestly, I don't know, dude. But the Steelers' offense is so bland with Matt Canada as their offensive coordinator. And outside of Kenny Pickett to George Pickens, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say about this. I guess I'll pick the Rams to win this one. I got the Rams winning. I think it'll be an ugly one, but I have the Rams winning 21-17. I think it's a respectable score. I think the Rams just do just enough to beat the Steelers. But here's the thing. The Rams defense has to show up big time. If they don't show up, then they're going to make the Steelers look like their Super Bowl selves back from 2010? Yeah, 2010. If I remember correctly, 2009-2010 was when the Steelers won the Super Bowl, and then they went back the year after, only to lose to the Packers. So that's kind of my little thing right there. I think the Rams win this game, but it's just going to be so tough. It's going to be a lot tougher than normal, and everyone's thinking that it's a home game. Well, you've not seen Steeler fans. Steeler fans travel really well. They're like Cowboys fans, which that's actually perfect segue to go into the next subject, Cowboys-Chargers. Now, here's the thing for the Chargers. They had a Week 5 bye, which was nice, But unfortunately for them, that didn't mean squat diddly, as they wound up losing to the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, 20-17. Now, the Chargers had so many opportunities to beat the Cowboys, but unfortunately, it was either the Chargers defense kept giving up 3rd and longs, which was so unacceptable, and the defense kept getting penalties, which was costly. The offense was just inefficient, and the offense was getting penalties left and right, or Justin Herbert was just overthrowing his receivers. And I really hate to say this, and this is no knock on Justin Herbert, but I don't think this was one of his better games. I like the dude, but it wasn't all on him, but he wasn't really the solution. Like, he had that late interception, which obviously the offensive line just straight up crumbled, and Micah Parsons just straight up bulldozed him on that second down on that final drive, and then eventually that final pick was just straight up all... I mean, obviously it was 50-50. It was either Justin Herbert gets rid of the ball, or he takes the sack and it's 4th and forever. So it's 50. It's basically lose-lose for Justin Herbert. But I hate to say it, but Dak Prescott did outplay Justin Herbert. But that doesn't mean this was all on Justin Herbert. The defense, obviously, giving up 4 key 3rd downs was crucial, and it sucks because I said this all on X or Twitter. The Chargers straight up were inconsistent, and it's terrible because the Chargers have so much talent on this team. They have gobs of talent on this team, and they're straight up wasting it just like always. And it's so sad. And the run game was just so quiet, as I find it funny that Kellen Moore's goal is to run the ball. Well, actually, no, that was Mike McCarthy's goal. Mike McCarthy's goal was to run the ball more, and Kellen Moore's one goal was to get the run game more involved. Well, it's kind of tough when the run game did not have anything going for them, as Eckler only had 27 rushing yards, which that's when you know the Chargers' offense was just so bland. And Herbert only had 227 passing yards, which wasn't bad. And he had 2 touchdown passes, which also was good. But again, also whiffing on 4th downs, which I think the Chargers had 2 fourth and ones, and then they wound up whiffing on both of them, which, man, you'd like to really have them back. And one was on 4th and goals, which the Chargers would love to have that one back, because if they just take the points, then the Cowboys and the Chargers are probably going into overtime. But it's just another one of those Chargers bad losses. It's the same different formula, same result, which sucks, because I was confident the Chargers could win this one, and coming off of a bye and coming off of the Cowboys getting a shellacking from the Niners, you would think the Chargers would be coming out on top in this game. But sadly, that was not the case. So, unfortunately for the Chargers, they moved to 2-3, and that's even worse because if I recall correctly, every team in the AFC wound up winning. The Chiefs won, the Browns won, the Ravens won. Well, they beat the Titans, but still. The Bengals won, the Jaguars won, even though the Colts wound up was the opponent of the Jaguars. The Dolphins won, which that's not good. The Texans won, the Raiders won, even though they beat the Patriots, and the Jets won, and the Bills won. So the Chargers lost a lot of ground in terms of the AFC. And the AFC, like I've mentioned, it's so competitive. And when when every other team is winning in the AFC and you're losing, it makes making the playoffs so much more tougher. And it doesn't get any easier because the Chargers have the Chiefs this week. At Kansas City, mind you. So, I don't know how the Chargers are going to win this one. They're always competitive with the Chiefs, however. I really feel the Chargers do have a shot at this, but the offense is going to have to bat 100 or 1,000, and then the defense is going to have to pitch a shutout. Well, not really a shutout, because Mahomes is certainly not going to get shut out. But honestly, the Chargers are going to have to play perfect football if they want to win. And It's obviously not going to be perfect football, and you could definitely expect Mahomes and Kelsey to be on the same page. But I'll say this about the Chargers: I feel they they can definitely win this one. I don't know what it is about the Chargers, but they always seem to get ever so close to beating the Chiefs, only to see one big play finding themselves, what's the word? Being the difference maker in the loss. Like, take, for example, the first meeting between the Chargers and Chiefs last year. It was a pick six, which, man, I think it was like 99 yards for a pick six, and that was not fun. And then the second meeting, Chargers were up, and then the Chiefs made their comeback, and Travis Kelce had himself a monster game. So, my thing is for the Chargers, everything has to go according to plan, and they really need to get Austin Eckler involved. And the offensive line really has to block well for Justin Herbert, because if not, he's going to be a deer in headlights, and he's going to be going down more often than not. And the sad thing is that he only got sacked once, and the funny thing is that Troy Aikman, a former Dallas Cowboy, and, obviously Troy Aikman and Joe Buck were the ones calling the game on Monday Night Football on ESPN. Troy Aikman said that the Cowboys have 0 sacks, and you could expect to see them bring pressure up the middle. And then eventually Micah Parsons got that sack, and I'm like, gosh dang it, Troy Aikman, shut up and stop jinxing the Chargers. And then eventually that pick happened, courtesy of Stephon Gilmore, and that was that. So the Chargers are really going to have to bring their A game, and they have to play perfect. And obviously, I don't know how they're going to defend Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce always seems to be the Chargers slayer, but if the Chargers want to win, they really need to they need to not have any mistakes. That's the first thing. The second thing is the defense has to get off the field on 4th down, and it can't just be like 4th and like short. It's got to be like 4th and long, 4th and Andy Reid's not going to go for it on 4th down. Because Mahomes could probably pick up a 4th down regardless. But I will say this. The Chargers defense didn't do too bad. But again, giving up 3rd and longs just does not bode well. So, I said this was going to be a win for the Chargers in my preseason predictions. And you know what? I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to say the Chargers win... I say the Chargers win 31-28. This is probably the boldest prediction that I'm going to make, but I think the Chargers win. Now, it's going to be very tough, and I don't know how windy it's going to be, but I imagine since now we're in the fall, winds are going to start to pick up, and the weather's going to be a little bit more nippy, but I think the Chargers might have a shot at this, and Justin Herbert always seems to do... Well, Justin Herbert and the Chargers always seems to do better in Kansas City as opposed to playing at SoFi. But I think the Chargers eke out a win, and it's kind of going to be crucial because if they can't eke out a win, then the road's going to get a little bit more tougher following week 8. Because week 9, they've got the Jets, which the Jets are phenomenal. Week 10, they've got the Lions, which are playing out of this world. Week 11, the Packers, they can be tough. Week 12, the Ravens, that's going to be on prime time, and the Ravens are playing pretty solid. Week 13, the Patriots, which Bill Belichick has always had the Chargers number. Week 14, the Broncos, they've got some players playing for pride. Week 15, the Raiders, which... The Raiders, even though they're 3-3, it's a divisional matchup, so you can never underestimate a divisional matchup or a divisional opponent. Then week 16, you've got the Bills fighting for a playoff spot. Week 17, Broncos at Broncos. Chargers have lost 4 in a row, and I told this to one of my colleagues at iSports Radio, JB Richmond, the Miami host. I said that the Chargers have lost 9 of 10 to the Broncos in Denver, which includes playoffs. And I want to say the Chargers might have a shot at that one, but if anything, I would have to hope that the Broncos are tanking at that point. And they're just putting in Trevor Siemian, and they're putting in their backups. And then week 18 is Cheifs, which if the Cheifs are sitting their backups, or I'm sorry, if the Cheifs are sitting their starters and putting in their backups, then they may have a shot at that one. If not, if they're still fighting for the number 1 seed, then the Chargers might have a problem on their hands. But this week would be a huge win because next week they'd get the Bears on Sunday Night Football, and that is definitely a winnable game, just because the Bears are a train wreck, to say the least. Sorry, Bears fans. But that's going to do it for the NFL portion of the show. Jumping over to some college football, and we all thought the Chargers were disappointing. This was more disappointing when it came to seeing USC, and USC was a major disappointment. And we might as well go over their game just because let's just get out of the way. They were playing on Saturday Night Football on NBC, and they got drubbed badly against Notre Dame. And they lost 48-20, and nothing went USC's way. What was worse is that Caleb Williams had 3 interceptions, and he only had 199 yards, and I imagine he had a fumble or two. I think he had like a fumble or two here or there, which really sucks because, yeah, USC just looked terrible. But the week before, let's go back in time a little bit. Zing! They played Arizona, and remember how I said Arizona might be a little bit more of a tougher challenge than normal? They were. Arizona actually led 17-0, and keep in mind this was at the Coliseum, and I was really worried. I'm like, oh no! And I forgot who the Arizona quarterback was. Noah Fafita, who he's actually a Southern California product who played at Servite. If you all heard 3 and Out College Edition, I brought this up on College Edition. And then Arizona obviously has the man-child, Teran McMillan, who I had to be reminded of that he was a former volleyball player, which I actually knew, but he quit volleyball after his junior year because he wanted to focus on football, and you don't want to get hurt after a football season. Anyway, so for SC, it was looking very bad. They were down 17-0, and then USC manages to score off of a 4-yard touchdown run from Caleb Williams, and then USC started to settle in as Williams found Kyron Hudson, and suddenly USC was only down 3, and it looked like USC was starting to settle in. And eventually USC took its first lead, 21-20, off of a Marshawn Lloyd 9-yard touchdown run, and eventually USC went up 28-20. It looked like everything was starting to feel good for USC, but then Arizona scored off of a 4th and goal conversion as Noah Fafita found Jacob Cowing for the score, and then Fafita found Teran McMillan, aka T-Mac, for the 2-point conversion. Then overtime came, and let's just fast forward. USC and Arizona went to triple overtime. Yes, triple overtime. Triple overtime. As the score was 41-41 after 2 overtimes. So if you don't know what triple overtime rules are in college football, in triple overtime, you go 2-point conversion. So you go from the 2, and then you have to complete the conversion. If you complete it, you get 2 points, and then the other team has to match you. And it goes on and on and on, just so the scoreboard isn't so high, and teams aren't like breaking records left and right. Anyway, so on USC's chance to get the 2-point conversion, Caleb Williams just ran it, and it was such a weird play. I didn't think it was going to work, but Caleb Williams, being the Heisman winner, he was able to score. And then Arizona basically belly flopped, as I think they ran an out route I think it was like an out. Yeah, I think it was an out route. I'm not the most knowledgeable football guy when it comes to like play calling, but it was an out route, and then USC sniffed it out, and that was how USC barely won. Now let's go back to last week's game against Notre Dame. All right, this was ugly. USC didn't get on the board in terms of touchdowns until the third quarter, as Marshawn Lloyd ran it in for a 31-yard touchdown run. It was looking like and at that point USC was down 11, but it seemed like Notre Dame had the answer for USC every single time. Going into the fourth quarter, USC was down 31-13 after a Sam Hartman 46-yard touchdown pass to Chris Tyree. Then Brendan Rice caught a 7-yard touchdown pass from Caleb Williams. Williams' only touchdown pass on the day, as USC was down 31-20. There was still plenty of time for USC to come back. And remember, college rules are if you get a first down, the clock stops. Unlike the NFL where the clock keeps going. But all hope was lost for USC after Jadarian Price had a 99-yard kickoff return touchdown. And I was like, no, that's just not, no. Unbelievable. USC's defense straight up went Chargers right there. And honestly, USC just straight up chargered this game. The lights were too bright, the defense was non-existent, special teams got cooked, offense was inefficient, everything just went wrong for USC as they straight up lost to Notre Dame 48-20. It looked like this was Notre Dame from the days of old, and their quarterback didn't even have to do much. He only had 126 passing yards, but he did have 2 touchdowns. So, this is just straight up frustrating for USC fans. The defense just straight up bent over. And the thing is, for USC, they had more yards altogether than Notre Dame did. But this is what happens when... But you also got to remember that USC has a very, 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 very bad defense. And now you got to wonder, when are you going to fire Alex Grinch? And now you also have to wonder, what the heck is this problem on special teams? When did USC start running the Chargers special teams playbook from way back when? It's just so terrible. And USC got called for 9 penalties for 75 yards. And they turned the ball over 5 times. 5 times. And I think Caleb Williams had, I want to say he had like 4 of those 5 turnovers, because he had 3 interceptions, and I want to say he had the fumble as well. So, I know it was in South Bend. I get it. However, that's still no excuse, because you got to win on the road if you want to become big time. And unfortunately for USC, and the thing is, Notre Dame wasn't even that good on third down. They were only 3 for 10. This was terrible, if you ask me. Just absolutely despicable. So USC definitely deserved to lose, and I'm so disgusted at USC right now. Now USC, it doesn't get any easier for them, because guess what? They have a Pac-12 matchup. And I don't even want to hear the excuse of, at least USC has a chance for the Pac-12 championship. No. USC could win the Pac-12 championship, but they still wouldn't be in contention for the national championship. It wouldn't mean anything, because they'd still be on the outside looking in. Because let's say they win the Pac-12 championship, knock on wood. Then, let's say they're 5. You have to be top 4. And that one loss could prove detrimental. So, USC is back at it this week as they play Utah. They host Utah, so... Here's my thing for USC. That defense of Utah's is very stingy, as we all saw against UCLA. But here's the thing. At the very least, Caleb Williams got the first bad game out of the way. And I don't know if Utah has Cam Rising back, as Utah straight up shellacked Cal last week. And no, they don't even have... Utah doesn't even have... wait, what? They don't even have their other quarterback. They had Bryson Barnes throwing in the win against Cal last week. What? Okay. Anyway, so, look, I don't think the USC is going to have to deal with Cam Rising anytime soon, unless Cam Rising just suddenly develops magical powers, and he develops the powers to heal, and he finally, gets the powers to crush USC again. But I expect USC to win this matchup. Thankfully, USC doesn't have to play in Salt Lake City, aka Utah. But knowing USC, they're probably going to bend over defensively, which I don't want to see, but it might happen. So I'm going to say USC wins 35-21. I want to see USC actually hold Utah to less just because they're playing a backup quarterback. No matter who it is, whether it's Nate Johnson or whoever played last week. Either way, as long as USC defends the run, which I imagine that if that's going to be a thing right there for Utah, USC should be fine. If USC does not defend the run game, or if USC is not efficient defensively, they're going to get ran over. They're going to be like the Chargers against the Tennessee Titans or the Miami Dolphins. So let's see what happens when it comes to USC. I think this is kind of their bounce back game. If they can't beat Utah, then they certainly have no shot against Washington or Oregon, which would really suck because that would officially kill USC's playoff hopes in terms of, well, Pac-12 hopes, because I think their playoff hopes are officially killed. But speaking of the Pac-12, we had UCLA playing last week, but before we get on into last week's matchup, we have to go back in time to their matchup against Washington State. So, shing! Alright, so remember when I said UCLA was going to barely lose to Washington State? I forgot that I did not know that Washington State had such a diarrhea-like offense. It was non-existent. As Washington State kept getting in their own way offensively, as UCLA kept feasting on all of Washington State's mistakes, and eventually UCLA wound up winning 25-17. So it was a very ugly game, as even UCLA did not play pretty. Washington State even had a pick six for 88 yards near the end of the second quarter. It looked like that one Oregon game, which was Chip Kelly's first game against Oregon back a couple of years ago. So it was 10-9 at halftime, as both teams were just straight up. Actually, no, it was UCLA managed to get a touchdown courtesy of Dante Moore finding Logan Loya, but the PAT failed because UCLA was unfortunately reading How to Kick for Dummies. So through three quarters, so UCLA kicked a field goal, but then unfortunately for them, Washington State responded with a 9-yard touchdown pass from Cameron Ward. And eventually Washington State was up 17-12. But then UCLA finally kicked it into overdrive as Keegan Jones, this dude was pretty legit, as he had 2 touchdown runs in the fourth quarter. And that actually proved to be the difference maker, as UCLA, like I said, they eventually wound up winning 25-17, which was huge right there. Now let's get back to real time. Alright, now let's talk about Oregon State UCLA. So, long story short, this was kind of I wouldn't say this was a lost cause, but UCLA was kind of facing an actual legit defense. And I picked Oregon State to win on College Edition last Saturday, and I really hate that I had to pick UCLA. But Oregon State's defense is a lot more legit than Washington State's. It's kind of up there with Utah's. And you saw it, and I hate to really say this, but Oregon State, they did beat Utah, but it's probably because Utah doesn't have a quarterback, but it's also because Oregon State's defense was so suffocating. And you also got to remember that UCLA was playing in Corvallis. If this were at the Rose Bowl, then maybe UCLA might have had a better chance. But Oregon State started off up 13-0 at the end of the first quarter, so UCLA was already in a big hole. But then UCLA rattled off 10 unanswered, only to see Oregon State rattle off 10 unanswered, as just like the previous week against Washington State, Oregon State had a pick six, which Dante Moore's kind of going to need to stop doing that. Otherwise, he might be losing his starting job. Not that I'm doubting him. I think Dante Moore's got the starting position locked up. I just think that it's so unfortunate that the poor guy straight up had 2 pick sixes in back-to-back games. That's just got to be the worst thing to happen to him. So Oregon State's up 23-10. They're now behind 29-10 after DJ Uiagalelei, the former St. John Bosco QB, hit Silas Bolden for a 43-yard touchdown pass. And I want to say Silas. Why does that name sound so familiar? Oh, he's from Rancho Cucamonga. Oh, that's cool. So it's a SoCal connection right there. As now Oregon State's up 29-10. UCLA does get a touchdown from TJ Harden, but Oregon State responds with another touchdown pass from DJ Uiagalelei. So now UCLA is back down 19, only to see Carson Steele run for a 7-yard touchdown. But unfortunately for UCLA, they just could not get any score. But I will give them credit, they held Oregon State off the scoreboard. So the end score was still Oregon State winning 36-24, which really sucks because I thought if UCLA had won this one, they would have definitely had a good shot at least winning the Pac-12. But now they've got 2 losses. They're 1-2 in Pac-12 play, and now it's going to start to get the schedule's going to start to ramp up a little. I mean, they still have quite a number of winnable games. They have maybe one. They have 1, 2, 3, at least 3 winnable games. And it starts this week against Stanford. Now, Stanford, however, it's going to be in Palo Alto. But I will say this. I think UCLA can win this. However, Stanford did have that amazing 29-point comeback win over Colorado. So, I will say this for UCLA. If they're thinking that this is going to be a cakewalk, they have another thing coming. Like, Stanford cannot... They cannot underestimate Stanford. Stanford's in a rebuild year. I understand. They have not been the same since David Shaw left that program. I get it. However, is John Humphrey still on that team? That's what I'm wondering. Anyway, but yeah, he is. Why doesn't Stanford use him? Anyway, bottom line, UCLA just can't underestimate Stanford. And for the love of all that is holy, please, Dante Moore, don't throw a pick 6. If you throw a pick 6 again, there will be no mercy. Now, I don't know if it's his offensive line just being so porous, but for the love of God, please protect Dante Moore. It was one thing with Utah because Utah's defense is so good, but Washington State's defense is not that great. I mean, that team gave up 40-plus to Arizona. And I understand with Oregon State having a very good defense, but still, you got to protect your quarterback. He's only a freshman. He is your future. Don't let him get embarrassed on TV. And this is going to be on national TV. So if he throws a pick 6, I don't know who to blame when it comes to this. And you better hope I'm not watching, because if I find out that offensive line forced him into a bad pass, I swear there will be carnage. Verbal carnage. Alright, but that's enough for UCLA. Jumping on over to San Diego State. So they actually had a matchup against Hawaii, as they had a bye. They had a bye the previous week, so I didn't miss much with San Diego State, and thank God I didn't have to recap another game. So their only game that I have to recap is against Hawaii. So, alright, so everything was looking good early on for San Diego State. They were up 10-0 after one quarter, so I thought this was a matchup that San Diego State should win fairly easily. Then they're up 17-0 after San Diego State records a pick 6. So I'm thinking to myself, alright, San Diego State should win this. I know San Diego State is in a different time zone, playing in Hawaii, but it looks like San Diego State is going to win. Little did I know this is San Diego State we're talking about here, as their defense doesn't really play a whole game, as they gave up 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. As remember how that 17-0 lead was a thing? It was down to 17-14, as the offense was also inept. Hawaii eventually tied the game up at 17 in the third quarter, only to see Jack Browning score a 24-yard field goal. But at the end of the third quarter, Hawaii scored a touchdown courtesy of Braden Schagel finding Nick Senecal for a 52-yard touchdown pass. Yeah. San Diego State's defense sucks. Like, what the heck, dude? San Diego State's defense is so heads or tails. It seems like it just can't do well against elite programs. And not that I'm saying Hawaii's elite, but against well-known programs. Like, what the heck, dude? Why does San Diego State do this? Do they enjoy putting their fans' hearts through the ringers? Are they like the baby Chargers of college football in Southern California? Like, why? Fortunately for the Aztecs, they do have this guy named Jalen Maiden who found Mekhi Shaw for a 69-yard touchdown pass. Then they had this running back who they have a run game, so Jalen Maiden doesn't have to put the team on his back, even though he led the team in rushing yards. Anyway, so Lucky Sutton had a 2-yard rushing touchdown to make that 27-24 lead of San Diego State's bump up to 34-24. Even though Hawaii got a touchdown following Lucky Sutton's touchdown run, Jalen Armstead managed to get a touchdown run of 1 yard as San Diego State then went up 41-31. And then Matthew Shipley kicked a 47-yard field goal with less than a minute to go. And it was all down to the hands team when it came to the onside kick. And fortunately for San Diego State, they recovered. And that was pretty much that, as San Diego State wound up winning, and they wound up winning, but it was ugly. Like, I just don't understand why San Diego State can put together a full game. I miss the old San Diego State from back post-COVID. Does this team just enjoy making their fans' heart rate go up? It just... Dude, it's like if their offense is not producing, their defense... It's either... If the offense is producing, the defense is basically taking a day off. If their offense isn't producing, the defense is feasting. It's just sickening to me. I just don't understand it. But at least they have their running back in Lucky Sutton. And at least they had a receiver crack 100 yards, even though Jalen Maiden only had 221. Like, that's just straight up terrible, dude. Overall, at least San Diego State did have, altogether, 378 yards as a whole. Though Hawaii had 480 yards of offense. Why? Why is San Diego State doing this? At least both teams were efficient in terms of penalties, as San Diego State only had one penalty, which I imagine might have been like roughing the passer or unsportsmanlike, while Hawaii only had 2 penalties for 11 yards. And Hawaii turned the ball over 4 times, whereas San Diego State turned the ball over once. Hawaii had 3 fumbles, by the way, so yikes. So, San Diego State is back in the win column as this weekend they host Nevada on Saturday. Nevada is 0-6. If, for some odd reason, San Diego State loses this, they're Dum Dum of the Week next week. No doubt about it. They are not losing to no 0-6 team. You hear me? Anyway, so San Diego State, I got them winning. I don't want to just randomly blurt out a score. I gotta be at least somewhat fair to Nevada. Oh, they barely lost to Kansas. Oh yeah, they beat... Oh yeah, I forgot USC played them. I'm gonna say San Diego State 35, Nevada 14. Actually, let's get Jack Browning in this scoring affair. And let's see the bet line. According to ESPN, San Diego State is favored by 13.5 points. Actually, let's move it to San Diego State 31, Nevada 14. That's fair. That's fair. Alright, but that's going to do it for the FBS portion of this show. Now let's jump on into the FCS portion of college football as San Diego, yes, standard old San Diego, they had a bye the previous week, as this past week they lost to Marist 30-16, which, yeah, and you thought that Dante Moore's pick sixes were bad. Well, Marist had a pick six courtesy of Nick Vecchiarelli, which, what is it with all these SoCal quarterbacks getting pick sixed? Stop doing this to us. Like, why? Anyway, so San Diego's having a very bad season. They are 1-5 as they face Drake. No, not Drake the rapper. They face Drake on Saturday, which I hope they're able to win, but I imagine they're going to lose that one. I'm not even going to bother predicting a score with San Diego. As for Cal Poly, they wound up getting the doors blown off by Montana State, 59-19, which is no surprise. The good news is for Cal Poly, they returned. Oh, and the week before they got blown out by Idaho, 42-14. The good news is for Cal Poly, they play Northern Colorado, which has not won. So I'll say this about Cal Poly: if they find a way to lose to Northern Colorado, they're dumb of the week. So I swear by all that is holy, Cal Poly, do not lose to Northern Colorado. I have them winning, though. It doesn't get much easier for Cal Poly, as after they play Eastern Washington, then they got Sac State and Weber State. I think it's Weber. Is it Weber? Weber. Larry B. of 3 and Out College Edition pronounced it Weber State, but I digress. Anyway, so that's going to do it for the college football portion of this show. Jumping on over to some MLS, and the MLS is not quite over, but I want to say the Galaxy are officially eliminated because they suck. I'm kidding. All right, but jokes aside, the Galaxy are still dead second to last in the West. As they're not going anywhere. As this past Saturday they tied against Real Salt Lake 2-2, but last Saturday they wound up losing to Minnesota 5-2, and on Wednesday, October 4th, they wound up losing to Seattle 2-1, which was no bueno right there. The good news is for LAFC, the LAFC actually has some assembly of an offense, as even though LAFC wound up losing to Real Salt Lake on the 1st of October, LAFC bounced Minnesota 5-1 on the 4th of August, that same day where Seattle wound up beating the Galaxy. And then LAFC wound up crushing Austin FC on the road 4-2 not this past Saturday, but the following Saturday, which was nice and all. So LAFC is back in action this Saturday in their final regular season game against Vancouver, against the Whitecaps. Now, here's the thing. LAFC cannot catch St. Louis. Darn it. But LAFC can still clinch the number 2 seed in the Western Conference with a win, or a Seattle loss. And maybe a tie from Seattle as... Would that get him a win? Maybe. It's classified. I want to say maybe a win, a tie or a loss from Seattle would net the LAFC the 2 seed. But regardless, LAFC, a win in the LAFC is the 2 seed. As if the whole playoff bracket is 8 teams, then LAFC would play the Portland Thorns. Whereas if LAFC actually loses and they drop to the 3 seed, they could, hence the word could, play Vancouver in the first round again. Or they could play Real Salt Lake, which wound up beating them. Or they could also play Houston. Or, heaven forbid, they could play Seattle, which could be a barn burner. A lot of possibilities are abound when it comes to these Western Conference playoff scenarios. But honestly, the sky's the limit for LAFC. I really am interested to see what will befall their fate. For the Galaxy, they play Dallas, FC Dallas, which Dallas, here's the thing for Dallas. If the whole playoff bracket is 8 teams, then Dallas would need a win. They need a win regardless, whether it's 7 teams or 8 teams that make it into the playoffs, as Dallas would need a win in order to make the playoffs, as if they lose and San Jose wins, then Dallas is out. So the Galaxy could, in theory, play spoiler to Dallas's playoff chances. But we'll see what happens when it comes to that. But the Galaxy are done. They're done. They're gone. Get out of here. We'll see you next year, Galaxy. The season's almost over, Galaxy fans. At least Chris Klein is gone. But for LAFC, they still have an MLS Cup to defend. So time will tell. But for LAFC, they have seeding to play for. So that's going to do it for the MLS portion of the show. I know I had to speed that up, kinda, but honestly, I kind of missed quite a bit. And I didn't want to bore everybody like I'm Mother Goose. So let's jump on over to some NWSL, as the NWSL is now in its playoff, its little playoff thingy. It's now in the playoffs. As Angel City, remember how they lost to Orlando? Well, they followed that up with a huge win, not last Saturday, but this past Saturday, the 8th of October, as they defeated Houston on the road 2-1, which kept them alive. And then they also, not only did they win in their final matchup, they crushed their opponent. And their opponent was no cupcake, as they straight up crushed the Portland Thorns 5-1. And oh my god, this was just straight up amazing. And they had 5 different goal scorers. This game was pretty much over by the time the 51st minute happened, as Angel City was up 4-0. And even when Portland scored, Angel City managed to get one more goal. So Angel City managed to come up big when it truly mattered, and Angel City managed to make the playoffs. So if you remember correctly, Angel City was second to last place when they fired their previous coach following Becky Tweed and her dismissal. Now they are in the playoffs, and that's just absolutely amazing right there. And I can't believe that Angel City actually pulled it off. Angel City is in the playoffs, and I don't think anybody had that happening. Angel City was second to last, and then they wound up, winning out almost. They lost one match, and now they are basically in the postseason. So I'm just in awe over that. So that's just quite amazing, if you ask me. So So it looks. I thought I was going to get the article of Angel City's revival. So Becky Tweed's actually the interim coach. So Freya Coombe was the coach that was fired. So Freya Coombe was the coach that was fired, and then Becky Tweed took over, and Angel City wound up not even losing a match. Well, they only lost one match going forward. I don't even think they lost an NWSL Cup play, so that's amazing right there. Now they've got the playoffs, and playoffs are what truly matters. So Angel City opens up the playoffs against OL Reign, but it's a road matchup, so they got to go up to the Pacific Northwest to play OL Reign. And while it's not going to be easy, it's certainly going to be a fun matchup. And regardless of what happens in that matchup, Angel City should be quite proud of how they went from 11th place all the way to 5th place with an interim coach. Heck, they even managed to make the playoffs over Orlando, which Orlando was the team that beat him. So I hope you're happy, Orlando. Night-night. Sorry, I had to. And heck, they were even able to have the tiebreaker over Gotham, as they avoid having to play the North Carolina Courage. So that is good that Angel City is in the playoffs. That's the good news. The bad news is that Angel City is actually on the playoff path of Wave FC, which is perfect segue to go into Wave FC and having to discuss them. So on Saturday, October 7th, Wave FC and North Carolina wound up tying with one another 0-0. But then the final match of the season, San Diego and Louisville Racing FC, Wave FC wound up beating Louisville 2-0 to clinch the Commissioner's Shield. Is that what it's called? It's the something Shield. Either way, they won the NWSL Shield champions. They were the NWSL Shield champions, which is awesome. So, the NWSL Shield goes to the team with the best record in the NWSL following the regular season. So, great job to San Diego Wave FC. So, for San Diego Wave FC, they will face the winner of OL Reign Angel City. And the best part is that they have home field advantage throughout the entire playoffs because, remember, the NWSL Cup Championship or the NWSL playoffs or the NWSL finals is going to be held in San Diego. So if San Diego makes it to the finals, knock on wood, in the event they don't have to run to Angel City, then boy howdy, that's going to be fun times for Angel City. But they won't know their opponent until after Friday. And whether it's OL Reign or Angel City, yeah, I'm sure they're going to have to play their hearts out. And they're going to have to play their hearts out. And I'm interested to see how they'll do against either opponent. I want to say that if they get Angel City, it's going to be a much tougher matchup. That's because that whole SoCal rivalry. But if they get OL Reign, then heaven knows what's going to happen. My hope is that I hope that Angel City doesn't get a big head when it comes to being the number 1 seed, and then they wind up crumbling under pressure, and then they wind up losing, kind of like how the number 1 seed Chargers wound up losing to the Patriots in the NFL playoffs back in 2006, or was it 5? Either way, you get what I mean. It was when the Chargers went 14-2 with Marty Schottenheimer, but I digress. Speaking of the Patriots, big shout out to Mikey Two Guns who was in the chat room. He said, "Hey bud, sorry I'm late." It's all good, Mikey. But I am going to have to take a commercial break. When we come back, I'll be discussing a little MLB as we got to put the Dodgers to bed. And I will be discussing some NHL as the Ducks and Kings have just kicked off their season. And then I got to give out some dum-dums of the week. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IA Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, sports fans? You're listening to IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your favorite West Coast Wisconsinite, Bernie Bango, and if you're a cheesehead, come listen to my show, Big Cheese Sports, where we road trip around America's Dairyland, previewing, reviewing, predicting, debating, and digging into all that is Wisconsin sports at the college and pro levels. Join me on IE Sports Radio, Sundays at 1 p.m. Central Standard. Bernie out.
Well, what is up, Carolina Nation? This is John Felipe of the Carolina Cast, of course, the podcast of, by, and for the Carolinas, right here on IE Sports, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I'm reminding you to tune in Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern for the latest in Carolina sports, whether it's the Panthers that keep on pounding, the fly natures of the Hornets, the storming Hurricanes, the battle of the Blues with Duke and UNC, the fight of the Clemson Tigers, or the amazing atmosphere of any Carolina college. I'm talking App State, I'm talking ECU. I've got you covered. Once again, tune in for the Carolina Cast with me, John Felipe, Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right. Welcome to AZ Sports Daily. I'm your host, Kieran Daly, bringing the heat to Arizona sports. There's no discrimination here. We're going to talk about every sports team, professional and college. The show is all about you, the listener. I'm here to entertain you. Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here? It's going to be fun, high energy. You may not agree with what I say. That's okay. Let me hear you. Let's talk about it. Join me every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on AZ Sports Daily. That's AZ Sports, Daily, and at IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What up, Boston sports fans? This is Mikey Two Guns here, your host of Our Bleepin' City, airing every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Please join me. We'll talk everything Boston sports, all the local teams, college teams. I'm even down to talk MMA, boxing, whatever you guys want. So join me every Wednesday night, 7 to 8 p.m. Chime in with your questions on the chat, tweet the show. We'll even have call-ins. I can't wait to hear from you guys. This is going to be a lot of fun. So once again, it's Our Bleepin' City. I am your host, Mikey Two Guns, every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. See you soon, people.
Back with segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Definitely do check out all of our amazing shows, especially Our Bleepin' City with Mikey Two Guns, who was in the chat room. Like I said, thank you for tuning in, bud. But let's get on into the second half of our show. Alright, it's time to bury the Dodgers as they are out. And look, I'm not ultimately surprised that they got bounced from the playoffs, but I'm just straight up disappointed. I just don't understand how this team continues to crumble like a cookie in the postseason. The worst part is that they straight up stunk. They didn't even lead once in the playoffs. Not one, to quote Cat Williams. As they lost the first game, not this last Saturday, but the previous Saturday, 11-2. Then on Monday, the 9th of October, they lost 4-2. And then on Wednesday, which was their elimination game, they wound up losing 4-2, which, yeah, great fight, Dodgers. Way to show up in the postseason. Not. I understand the Dodgers had no form of pitching. I knew that their pitching was cooked when they had multiple players going to the DL. But honestly, where was the offense? Where was Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman? It just doesn't make sense how their offense was clicking a lot in the regular season, and then they wind up just laying a goose egg in the postseason. And I want to say Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts was a whopping 1 for 21 in the postseason. Ouch. And some are even saying that they should trade Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and start from scratch. And these are Dodgers fans that I know, but I digress. But I don't know what to really say. I understand the Dodgers had 0 good pitchers, and when you include Kershaw having that disastrous start, it just does not, or that disastrous game 1, it just doesn't make matters better. But this was a series that the Dodgers were never, ever, ever in. And it sucks because I really thought the Dodgers maybe had a chance. I maybe thought they had a glimmer of hope, but sadly, they just straight up didn't. And I'm not disappointed that they lost. I'm just disappointed that they just straight up got bulldozed. And what's even worse is that the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks eventually are getting bulldozed by the Phillies. Now, would the Dodgers fare any better against the Phillies? Most likely not, but Mikey Two Guns is funny. He says, "We will gladly take money off your..." He says, "We will gladly take Mookie back if Boston... We will gladly take Mookie back in Boston if you guys want to get rid of him. Well, you better give us something pretty good. Because we're not just going to give him back for free, you know? So we want something back pretty nicely in return." But anyway, and Patty Backs pops to the chat room. She says, "I can't turn the sound on unless you go past 4:30. I hope to catch the Dum-Dums of the week." Well, currently right now it is 1:12 on the Pacific Coast time. So hopefully I do make it to 1:30 for Dum-Dum of the week. So yeah. So, and Mikey says he heard that the teams with the 4 best records were already eliminated in the MLB playoffs. And yeah, that's true. There is not one team remaining with 100 wins remaining in the playoffs. All that remains is the Phillies, the Diamondbacks, the Astros, and the Rangers. So, yeah, it did feel... But it just goes to show that the playoffs are a whole different beast when it comes to... whatchamacallit, when it comes to the MLB playoffs. Because you could be the best team in the regular season in the MLB, but when it comes playoff time, none of that really matters. Everything goes out the window, and if you're not playing your best, you are basically out. No pun intended. So for the Dodgers, I'm just straight up disappointed that they never even led once. That's the big thing that I'm ultimately disappointed in. And I'm also just disappointed that they straight up... Their best hitters were just not even there. Only one hit out of like 21 at-bats, which is just unacceptable. You just can't have that. So all in all for the Dodgers, it was another disappointing postseason, as you also kind of got to wonder what are you going to do with Dave Roberts? Does he go as well? I really hope so, but it probably won't do, because everyone will just crown Dave Roberts and praise him for the amazing job that he did in the regular season, and then they'll just get rid of him. So it's like how Raider fans want Brandon Staley to stay with the Chargers. And Mike Dugan says that what's going on with Kershaw, some people are saying he's done. Well, it's still 50-50 right there. He hasn't said anything, but I think his goose is cooked. If he wants to come back for another season, awesome, but I think he's kind of cooked at this point. I can't really determine that, but all in all, I want to say his goose is pretty much cooked. But that is pretty much that when it comes to the MLB, and I'm just straight up disappointed that the whatchamacallit, the Dodgers just straight up laid another goose egg. It was understandable last year, and it was nice that the Padres had that nice shining moment, even though they got goose egged against the Phillies. But now they did it a second straight time. So I just can't, y'all. So that's basically that for the MLB for the time being. So yeah, no more MLB until next year, until next February, which it is what it is at this point. And honestly, whatever. the Dodgers at least the Dodgers could say they had a better season than their Southern California counterparts in the Angels and Padres. Anyway, so jumping on over to the NHL portion of the show. So the Kings and the Ducks kicked off their season as the Kings managed to kick off their season with a 5-2 loss against the Colorado Avalanche, which is But then they also lost in a shootout to the Carolina Hurricanes 6-5. But then the third time was the charm by beating the Winnipeg Jets 5-1. So 5 seems to be the magic number when it comes to the LA Kings, as it's either they're allowing 5+ goals or they're scoring 5+ goals. So tonight they are back in action when they play at the Minnesota Wild. And then this Saturday, they will be hosting the Boston Bruins, or Mikey's Boston Bruins. Then Tuesday, they host the Arizona Coyotes. And then Friday, they'll be heading down to the Cactus State to take on the Arizona Coyotes by the time we get another show. If we get another show, which hopefully we do. So a little bit of an iffy start right there for the Kings, but it's all good. As for the Ducks, they kicked off the Greg Cronin era with a 7-1 loss against the Arizona Coyotes. Yeesh. But wait, is that right? No, no, that was just preseason. I'm sorry. See, I can't tell what's preseason and what's not preseason, so they really should label that on ESPN. But the Ducks lost to the Golden Knights 4-1, so that was kind of even worse. But at least the Golden Knights loss was to be expected. The Ducks did, however, beat the Carolina Hurricanes 6-3, getting their first win in the Greg Cronin era. So that's a decent win right there. I mean, the Hurricanes aren't really the best team, but at least they got a win. Anyway, the Ducks are back in action tonight as they host the Dallas Stars. And then Saturday, the Ducks hit the road to the Cactus State to take on the Arizona Coyotes. Then Sunday, the Ducks return to Anaheim to take on the Boston Bruins. Then Tuesday, the Ducks head down to Columbus to take on the Blue Jackets. Then Thursday, the Ducks head down to Beantown to take on the Boston Bruins, and then next Saturday, the Ducks head down to the city of brotherly love to take on the Philadelphia Flyers. So that won't be until, but that'll be past when I have my show next, most likely, unless of course something happens. But I'm not promising anything. But the Ducks are 1-1, and thank goodness they have at least one win. And hopefully this year will be a little bit better than last year, because if not, then I don't know what to really tell the Ducks. At least they have a win at this point. All right, but that is that for the NHL portion of this show. For purposes of, I want Patty to hopefully listen in. Let's talk a little Big West Conference men's basketball. So, the Big West Conference released its coaches poll. So, on the men's side, they also released it on the women's side. So, let's just go from 11 through 6. So, 11 through 6 consists of Cal Poly at 11, Cal State Northridge at 10, UC San Diego at 9, Cal State Bakersfield at 8, UC Riverside at 7, and Cal State Fullerton at 6. 5 through 1 consists of UC Davis at 5, UC Irvine at 4, Hawaii at 3, Long Beach State at 2, getting two first place votes, and the team that is slated to finish number 1 in the Big West Conference in men's basketball is... Y'all thought you were safe from the drum roll, right? UC Santa Barbara. So, the reigning Big West Conference tournament champion is slated to finish first in the Big West Conference, which is understandable. I'm surprised Long Beach State is slated to finish that high, as all the preseason coaches Big West Conference tournament, or the Big West Conference preseason coaches team consists of Javon McClanahan of Hawaii, AJ Mitchell of UC Santa Barbara, Elijah Pepper of UC Davis, Bryce Pope of UC San Diego, Abu Bakor Traor, I am so sorry if I can't pronounce that. Abubakar Traor of Long Beach State, and Lasina Traor of Long Beach State. So I'm guessing the Traor brothers are brothers. So that's my guess. So that's pretty much your preseason coaches team for the Big West Conference men's basketball. So there's that right there. And then for women's basketball, 11 through 7 consists of Cal State Northridge at 11, UC Riverside at 10, Cal State Bakersfield at 9, Cal Poly at 8, and Long Beach State at 7. Tied for 5th is actually Cal State Fullerton and UC San Diego. 4 is UC Santa Barbara. UC Davis is 3rd. UC Irvine is 2nd. And the team that is slated to finish first in the Big West Conference in women's basketball is Hawaii. So, unfortunately, no SoCal team is slated to finish first in the Big West Conference in women's basketball. But UC Irvine is slated to finish 2nd, which is pretty nice. Because if you remember correctly, UC Irvine won the Big West Conference, even though there's a little bit of an asterisk because they played fewer games than Long Beach State in women's basketball in terms of the Big West. And every Long Beach State fan was so irate, which is understandable. As for the Big West women's basketball preseason coaches team, that consists of Fujiki Nemo of Cal State Fullerton, Deja Phillips of Hawaii, Tova Sibel of UC Davis, Nikki Tom of UC Irvine, Evan Turner of UC Davis, and Lily Wahine Kapu of Hawaii. So that's that for the Big West Conference right there. And I want to say USC men's basketball was kind of in the news for good reason. It's for good reason, not for bad reason. So, as Isaiah Collier was actually named the CBS Sports Preseason Freshman of the Year. So, I hope there is no jinx to that, and I hope we could see Isaiah Collier basically have himself a monster freshman year, because USC kind of deserves a deep playoff run. And I don't want to see any more of this whole ring thing when it comes to making the Elite Eight, because I'm still irate at what the previous athletic director did when it came to giving them rings after making the Elite Eight. You don't get rings for making the Elite Eight. You get rings for winning the whole dang national championship. And then also Isaiah Collier and Boogie Ellis, yes, that is his name, have been named to the CBS Sports Preseason Second Team, All-American Preseason Second Team. USC men's basketball, why you gotta word that so weird? And believe it or not, USC is actually, we are just one of 3 teams to have multiple players on the list. Cool. I'm guessing the others are probably like UConn and maybe UCLA. But I digress. Maybe FAU. Anyway, but that is that right there for USC men's basketball. As, believe it or not, in terms of the AP Top 25, USC is actually ranked as they check in at number 21. I know I'm being a little bit of a USC homer, but they kind of deserve it, as USC women's hoops is actually ranked in the top 25, as they check in at 21 as well, as they're both ranked 21. That's crazy. That is coincidental, if you ask me. Yeah, that's a little weird if you ask me. But anyway, it's good to see USC women's hoops nationally ranked. It just shows that USC women's hoops, which has kind of been in the cellar of the Pac-12, is going to be really good this upcoming season. They're not going to be a doormat anymore. And honestly, the fact that they made the NCAA tournament is a step in the right direction. Would I like to have seen them maybe go deeper into the NCAA tournament? Yes. But it showed that they had little to no experience in the NCAA tournament and making it deep into the Pac-12 tournament. So now this year they have a lot more experience. They had the number 1 recruit, so this is going to be a special year for USC women's hoops. Alright, but that is going to do it for a little college basketball talk right there. I know I just talked only Big West Conference and USC, but it is what it is. Alright, but before we head on out of here, we got to give out some Dum Dum of the Week's awards. So the Dum Dum of the Week goes out to those that don't make the smartest decisions. The Dum Dum of the Week goes out to those that basically are not safe from this award. No one is safe from this award. Anyone can get this award, and honestly, as long as I find it reasonable enough, I can basically give this award out to anyone. It can be my neighbor, it can be my neighbor's dog, it can be anyone that is well deserving of this award. So I missed out on last week, and I have probably multiple Dum Dum of the Week awards to give out. But I have to start off with Dum Dum of the Week number 1, and sadly, Dum Dum of the Week number 1 happens to go to myself. And the reason being is because, well, I thought it was the best idea to do set point on Monday without a computer charger. So, if you all remember, I did set point on the road, as I have to give a shout out to my buddy for letting me use his podcast studio, as I took my laptop with me after I got done with being at a press conference at a Long Beach State for women's volleyball. And then after that, I went to my other job, which was held at the podcast studio, and then I did set point from there. Unfortunately, I did not have my laptop charger, so I had two options. I either could go home and do my podcast, or I could either do my podcast without the laptop charger and just hopefully wing it. So, you all know what I chose. I chose to wing it. Unfortunately, I did not. It was a decision I ultimately regret, as sadly, I thought I could make it within the time frame, and my laptop is so weird. My battery life can sometimes range from 2 hours, from like 1 hour, and then it'll jump up to like 90 minutes, which is like an hour and a half, and then it'll basically just straight up tell me you've got X amount of hours, and then it'll go very quickly. So my laptop is fairly old. I'm just saying that right there. So unfortunately, I did set point, and my laptop wound up dying. So, oops. Long story short, have your laptop charger handy, just so you're not running the risk of your laptop dying. Especially when your laptop is old like mine. Like, 4 years old is pretty old, if you ask me. So, and while I was able... And here's the funny thing. When I got home after I did set point, I wound up noticing that there was no power in my house, so there was a blackout within my neighborhood. So at the time, it was not the best decision to do set point on the road, but in reality, it also would have been better to maybe move set point to Tuesday. So it's a little bit of regret versus no regret. But I think maybe moving set point to Tuesday afternoon at like noon would have been the much better decision. But it's all good. I did set point, and eventually my laptop died, and eventually I paid the price, and I had to edit my show, and I had to recreate it, and then I basically had to bite the bullet. Alright, and it was very hectic if you ask me. So, yeah, long story short, always have your laptop or computer charger handy, otherwise you're going to be like me, because a 4-year-old laptop is not going to really cut it. So, because of my mishap of not having my laptop charger handy and being on the road without one and only having like an hour to spare, when set point on average is like about 30 minutes, even though I wasn't even, or I'm sorry, not 30 minutes, 90 minutes, even though I wasn't even at 90 minutes. I am this week's Dum Dum of the Week because I failed to basically be prepared. And the funny thing was, I actually had my mic, and that was the one thing I didn't want to forget. Unfortunately, I didn't have my laptop charger, and I was just so torn on either going back to get it or just doing the show cold turkey and winging it. And I should have just moved it to Tuesday. But regardless, I'm this week's Dum Dum of the Week because I unfortunately wasn't ultimately thinking straight, and I was not ultimately organized. This is why you gotta have a checklist, people.
Dumb.
Oh, hold on.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
At least I did set point. And the reason why I moved set point's time was because of the Chargers game. If it weren't for the Chargers playing on Monday Night Football, I would have done set point at 6 p.m., even though I think the blackout would have pushed my time back even further. But regardless, it is what it is. Alright, but that's a little excusable. What isn't excusable is the next Dum Dum of the Week. Alright, so this actually goes back from when USC played Arizona. So on that same night, there was another college football game that happened. And if you all know where this is going, you all know where this is going. You have to go all the way back to the 305, where Miami, which was having a great season, was playing Georgia Tech in football. College football. Not volleyball, not basketball, college football. And it looked like Miami was going to win. The U was going to pull off another great win, even though Georgia Tech wasn't even that good. And unfortunately for Miami, I don't know what they were thinking. They were up, I think it was 21-17. They had the ball. Georgia Tech had 0 timeouts. It was late in the fourth quarter. All Miami needs to do is take a knee, and then they win the game. I don't know what Mario Cristobal was thinking, but why are you having your team run the ball when the other team has 0 timeouts left? It makes 0 sense. And eventually, Miami fumbles the ball, and it's recovered by Georgia Tech. And all Miami fans were doing was whining about the call, saying, oh, it wasn't a fumble. Well, it shouldn't have gotten to that point, because your coach should have said, take the knee, let's get out of here, let's take the win, let's stay undefeated. But no, you decided to run. And eventually, Mario Cristobal said, we should have taken a knee. Well, no kidding, Sherlock. Of course you should have taken the knee. Even though his motto, according to our Miami host, J.B. Richmond, he said he doesn't take the knees. Well, bullcrap. You should take knee. You should take the knee and take the win. If you're not taking the knee and being logical, then you're a stupid coach, and you should be coaching college football. Eventually, Georgia Tech wound up taking advantage of the turnover. They got the go-ahead touchdown with 1 second remaining, and eventually Georgia Tech upset Miami. But that's not the big Dum Dum of the Week. So Cristobal is part of that Dum Dum of the Week. But you want to know what else is who else was Dum Dum of the Week? The fans. The fans were Dum Dum of the Week because I understand their frustration, but the fans were throwing objects onto the field. I think they were throwing bottles onto the field. It was kind of like Bottlegate from the Jacksonville Jaguars Cleveland Browns game, but shame on those Miami fans for throwing objects onto the field. I understand the frustration, but that's no way to act. You are stupid, and I saw some of the objects were thrown at the players of Georgia Tech. So, I'm just so disappointed. I don't know who to be more disappointed in, Georgia Tech, or not Georgia Tech, Mario Cristobal or the Miami fans. I gotta say Mario Cristobal, but Miami fans should be more classful when it comes to that. Like, that's just disappointing right there. So, to Mario Cristobal for calling that play of running the ball when the other team has 0 timeouts, and all you just have to do is take the knee. You are this week's Dum Dum of the Week.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Oh, and Miami fans, you're not off the hook as well. You're this week's Dum Dum of the Week as well, as you think you're off the hook for throwing objects onto the field? Well, what if your objects hit one of the players, and what if your object injured either the official or anyone involved in that game? Would you feel good about yourself now? You're this week's Dum Dum of the Week as well, Miami fans who threw the objects onto the field of the Georgia Tech Miami game.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
I don't even think the Miami fans deserve the Kawhi Leonard laugh, but I digress. Speaking of college football, we have another Dum Dum of the Week, and we have to go with Colorado. Alright, I hate to do this to Colorado, but remember how the Chargers blew a 27-0 lead? Oh, I've been waiting for this moment for a little bit. I can now officially take the stress off of myself as a Chargers fan when it comes to this. Oh, Colorado, you were facing a rebuilding Stanford team. This Stanford team was nowhere near good. Its best win was, I think, against Sacramento State. And you were up 29-0 at halftime. All you just needed to do was continue to play your style of football. You didn't. You wound up not only blowing that 29-point lead, but you wound up losing to Stanford. But you also lost in overtime as penalties kept racking up, and honestly, it was just straight up disgusting. I was looking at this game, I'm like, no way. No. I just couldn't believe Colorado blew a 29-0 lead. I was surprised that Stanford won, but the fact that Colorado blew a 29-0 lead, I was thinking to myself, and I thought the Chargers blowing that 27-0 lead to Jacksonville was bad. At least Jacksonville was good, and the Chargers were on the road, and the Chargers had that habit of blowing leads. Colorado has zero excuse. They were improved, and they wound up losing that lead to Stanford. So, Colorado, you have zero excuses. I'm sorry, but there's no excuse. And the fact that you lost it in overtime is kind of the kicker. I understand the Chargers lost their game in regulation because they were chargering. You should have won that game fairly easily. This is a Stanford team that I don't even know the name of their head coach. I don't think anyone knows the name of their head coach. I don't even think anyone knows the name of their quarterback off the top of their head. You have to be a big Pac-12 stan or Stanford stan to basically straight up know the name of their coach or their quarterback. It's straight up amazing that Colorado straight up lost. I don't care what the excuse is, Colorado. You are this week's Dumb of the Week. No excuses. You lost a 29-0 lead at halftime, and you lost by 3 in overtime. Get out of here.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Welcome to the world of what the Chargers had to go through when they blew a 27-0 lead, Colorado. I'm sorry, but that is the truth. And it's disappointing if you ask me. And I think that is pretty much that when it comes to all of the dum-dums of the week. I think I went through a lot of dum-dums of the week. Myself, my aunt, Mario Cristobal, the Miami fans. Oh, and by the way, I should also make note that in that USC-Arizona game, USC almost did what Miami did, as they actually were in field goal range against Arizona. All they needed was a field goal to win. They actually ran the ball on first down, and they almost lost the ball, and they fumbled it, and thankfully for them, they recovered it, and it's funny because they actually kicked the field goal. The snapper got hurt, and the snap was terrible, and the kick was straight up absolutely horrendous. It looked like a kick that like a random person would kick out on the street. I actually did have another Dumb of the Week in mind, but I'm not going to say it on there. I'm not going to put it on there for possibly someone to hear. But anyway, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for me to get on out of here, because I got to get ready to basically do my job, and I got to get me some grub. Yeah, dig? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Shout out to Mikey Two Guns and Patty Bax for tuning in. I really do appreciate you, too. I should be back with the SoCal Supreme Sports Show next week. I will be back with Set Point at its normal time, for real this time, next week. But until then, have yourself a great rest of the week, and just remember, SoCal is for SoCal. See you all at UC Irvine, everybody. Peace!